This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
Can this Patriots team actually win 3 out of 4 games? Well, we'll talk about the Rams-Pats matchup coming up in just a minute. First, download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. And also, speaking of game, take the guesswork out of buying tickets to go to games with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. All right, the biggest news, Greg, this week has to be Christian Barmore. He's back at practice today. Are you surprised by this development?
Am I surprised? Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, I think at the time we said, you know, everybody's different. That I think, whenever this happened, it was so it was like a late August or something like that. I think, at the time it was basically like 3 months of, going through the medicine, whatever, the treatment for blood clots. Basically, it's like you need to be on blood thinners for like 3 months, and then you need to be off blood thinners for like 3 months. So, it was looking sketchy. Maybe he got back by, maybe December. Right now it's the middle of November. So, things have gone well. I mean, I will say that the team at the time when they got the diagnosis, they were not optimistic that he was going to play at all this season. I do think we're still along the timeline of, the way that people talk today down there, whether it was DeMarcus Covington or Jerry Montgomery. It was a lot of like, look, it's just good to get him back on the field. Like, let's keep expectations in check. So, and I'm not sure exactly how it works. Like, I don't think this is like coming off of IR where like they just opened up the 21-day window, because he was on non-football injury list. I think he can be on there for a while, sort of while he's like trying it out. So we don't know whether he's ever going to come off that list. But I think, you're looking at a time frame of a couple weeks, them seeing how things go. And then, maybe around December 1st, somewhere, maybe late November, they decide, whether it's worth it to do this or, what have you. But, I would say the odds were long that he was going to be back this season. So that he's back, I think it's a pleasant surprise.
You look back, it's late July. So July 28th is the ESPN story saying that he was diagnosed with the blood clots over that weekend. So if you go by the 3-month thing, as you said, you have to be on medication for 3 months. We know that when he was stopped by Providence police, his mother said that he was on medication and blood thinners. So at that point, which was middle of October, he was still on those blood thinners. So it looks like it would have to be late October when he likely gets off of those. So it's been about 2 weeks since he's been off of the blood thinners, you would have to imagine. So I think it's all relatively speaking, you know what I mean? I think we got to keep our expectations at a reasonable level. Of course, excitement. I'm happy that he's back on the field because it means the young man is healthy, which is always great and was priority number one from the very beginning of this. Couldn't care less about his football career. You want to know that he's healthy and he's good as a young man. And so obviously him hitting the practice field tells us that. Now it's just, can he get himself ready? And if he gets out there and he plays a game, how much do you expect him to do? What are reasonable expectations? I think we've got to make sure we don't go too fast here with Christian Barmore and understand the situation he just went through, and especially not to expect him to walk out there and look like an all-pro or a Pro Bowler.
Right.
If he does, great. I mean, then we're all pleasantly surprised and very happy about that. But let's keep everything kind of in relative terms and understand what he just went through. Meanwhile, Greg, your buddy Burt Breer, very complimentary of the job Alex Van Pelt has done with Drake Maye. I know you have not been as complimentary, which apparently I did not know has rubbed some people the wrong way, Beetle and so. Your thoughts on Burt Breer's comments about AVP, the job he's done, and his future here in New England.
Well, I'm a little bit, so I don't know what you're referencing. Maybe Burt said something in the interim. I mean, I was more curious. I wasn't sure if we talked about his quote unquote report, thanks to badgering from Felger, that the Crafts had been gathering information on how.
Oh, all right. You want to talk about that part of the quarterback and how to develop the young quarterback?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, unless you're referencing something else that I'm not aware of.
Well, Burt had just said that he thought that AVP's done a very good job with Drake Maye and that he's continued to improve and he looks like a different guy from what he looked like in August. And I know that's not what you see. So I was asking you about that part. But if you want to go to the craft side about him looking at young quarterback play and how to develop a young quarterback, how to take care of that quarterback, go right ahead. It is your podcast, Greg.
Well, I mean, on the other thing on Alex Van Pelt, I mean, as far as Drake Maye, I do think he's done a good job with Drake Maye. I mean, it's sort of a chicken and the egg type of thing on, would Drake Maye be, would he be better if they ramped up his preparation and he played week one? I still believe that. And even some of Drake's comments this week, when he basically said, like, he thinks he's still the same player that he was in college. He's still sort of making the same plays. I mean, does he have more of an understanding of this scheme and NFL offense? Yes. But I don't think that's Alex Van Pelt specific. I think that would have largely happened with, any offensive coordinator. And remember, there's two other people, TC McCartney and Ben McAdoo, are involved in the training of Drake Maye. But I do think there's no question in my mind that Alex Van Pelt is a good NFL quarterback coach. Is he a good NFL coordinator, offensive coordinator? I think the jury's still out. Certainly the Bears game was promising. I need to see more of that. But his job is just, sorry to people who think everything is about Drake Maye this year. Like, his job isn't to just develop the quarterback. His job, because they do have a quarterbacks coach, they do have Ben McAdoo, his job is to coordinate an NFL offense. And I do think that's been underwhelming largely to this point. As far as Burt's reporting about the Crafts and sort of what it means, from what I know about it, they are doing things in the background. What exactly that means and the timing of it, I do think is important. I know this has not been a tightly held secret that the Crafts have been doing this, and a lot of it, when I heard about it, it was sort of in crisis time. It was sort of around the 1-6 start, around there, which at that time, Nick, I think you would agree, we were just like, I don't know which way this season's going. I mean, if it continues to be a dumpster fire, everybody could be out. Now, they've steadied a bit since then. Maybe some of this word got back to Alex Van Pelt and other people and Gerard Mayo, and they started to step their game up. I do think that the coaches stepped their game up in terms of, especially in the Bears game, where we talked about, the things I look from a coaching staff are solve problems on your own team. First of all, I don't want to hear about personnel. Your personnel is your personnel. You need to figure out a way to solve problems on your own team. And you need to present difficulties to the opposing team in all three phases. And I think finally we saw that against the Bears. You can make your arguments as did we see it in some other games as well? But there's no question I think they've stepped their game up that way. Do I necessarily think that they are shopping for Alex Van Pelt's replacement? No, I do think that the Crafts have been on a fact-finding mission of sorts to figure out. I think their primary motivation for what they've been doing in the background is that they're going forward with Gerard Mayo again, and I said that was likely unless it was a complete dumpster fire, which it has not been. How do they? I don't think they had all the information on Gerard Mayo. They obviously have more information on him and his coaches now during an actual NFL season and going through this. And they're trying to figure out how do they better support Gerard Mayo and the young quarterback? It's not just Drake Maye. How do they better support Gerard Mayo and the young quarterback going forward? And I don't think they went into this to be like, Alex Van Pelt sucks as an offensive coordinator, we need to make a move. I think they're doing their due diligence somewhat after the fact, but I think that's really what it's about than just like replacing the offensive coordinator, if that makes any sense at all.
I mean, I guess it's good they finally got there, even if it was a little bit too late. Regarding AVP, I found it interesting, all the comments that were made yesterday. Gerard Mayo coming out and being very complimentary, saying that there's nobody that is, more responsible for Drake Maye's improvement than Van Pelt. And Maye came out and sung Van Pelt's praises. And Hunter Henry said that he really appreciates and loves the football mind of Van Pelt and the game planning of Van Pelt. Now, of course, I don't expect any of those people to come out and publicly throw Van Pelt under the bus when asked about the offensive coordinator. But I do think taking that extra step and praising him is what we heard yesterday. My question to you, Greg, is how tough would it be for the Patriots to let AVP go if he does have a strong grasp on the room and the room loves him and Drake Maye feels super comfortable with him? I know, you got to look at what's on the field, product on the field, but how much more difficult does it get for this organization to wave goodbye to AVP if he is beloved in that room and guys believe that he can get the job done in 2025?
I don't think it's a huge issue. I mean, the biggest thing is in terms of what they do going forward. Let's say they decide to make a change at offensive coordinator. And by the way, I don't think the Crafts would be doing any sort of due diligence unless Gerard Mayo sort of gave him a wink and a nod type of thing.
Yeah.
Because I think they talk constantly with Gerard, and obviously about Robin Glazer's connection to what's going on there and her closeness to Jonathan Kraft, and so that should be mentioned as well. But I think the most important thing is if you move on from Alex Van Pelt, you better know what's behind door number 2 before you move on door number 1, because that could turn into just a catastrophe. Whether that can happen or not, I don't know. But they need to have a good idea. But look, the NFL is not about nice people, good people feeling comfortable. It's about winning football games. And it's great. Alex Van Pelt, we all knew coming into this, Alex Van Pelt is widely revered by the players that he coaches. He's just that type of guy. He's a really nice guy, and he certainly relates to the quarterback and the players because he's been in their shoes before. Players really respect that. But, these guys are big boys. They're professionals. As long as they're going to a better situation, say next year, if they do move on from Alex Van Pelt, I think that's the paramount thing to the players. I don't think there's any danger of them backsliding and because they miss Alex Van Pelt or anything like that. I don't think that's the case.
Couple things, if the Crafts are looking around, as you say, as Breer says, and you said that it's not really a secret that the Crafts are at least doing some of the due diligence and looking at this offense and looking at the quarterback. If they're looking around, that would lead me to believe that they might not think, or they've been told that TC McCartney and Ben McAdoo are not the answer, because to me, if you let AVP walk, the easiest solution is if you want to go for the young, hey, this guy might be up and coming pick with TC McCartney, he's there. If you want to go with the, grizzled veteran who's done a pretty good job as an OC in the past at the NFL level, you would go with McAdoo, who has been around Drake Maye, and you would imagine that they could marry some of the offense from this year to next year, which just begs the question, if you do go out, as you said, and look behind door number 2, and you bring somebody in from behind that door, what is that person's intentions? How long are they going to be here? Are you setting up Drake Maye to have, 3 or 4 offensive coordinators in his first 3 or 4 seasons, which is a disaster? how much of a scheme change would be involved? How much does that change your offensive roster and your plan going forward if you're Elliott Wolf? There's a lot of complexities to this conversation. And I think a lot of people just treat it, oh, well, AVP hasn't been great, so let's just move on and just find another guy. It's not that easy. There's a lot of different things you have to, look into and figure out. I would say, and this is not an original thought. I'm not the first person to bring this name up, but Brian Daboll, I would have to imagine would be on the list. His history here, the Crafts, I would imagine would be very comfortable with him being here because of that history. His experience with Josh Allen, the similarities between Allen and Maye. So if Daboll gets popped in New York, I would just have to believe he would be near the top of the list for the Patriots if they did decide to move on from Van Pelt. And if you bring Daboll in, it's not like maybe it happens, but I find it hard to imagine that Daboll would get a head coaching job in 2026. So if you did bring Daboll in, you'd have him for at least 2 years, if not 3.
Yeah. I have checked in on Daboll and, people who know him and what they think he might do if he is let go in New York. I was told it would be a long shot for Daboll to come here and work under Gerard Mayo, because you got to remember, and we've talked about this before, Mayo has a couple things working against him. Number one, what's going to be his longevity as far as head coach? I mean, it sort of depends on how they finish this year, how it looks, because you could get in sort of a Matt Eberflus situation where it was like, all right, they brought him back, but a lot of offensive coordinator candidates were like, well, I don't know if he's going to be there beyond 1 year, and what does that mean for me? So I think that's part of it. A big part of it to me is all these coaches talk, and a lot of them share the sort of the same agents and things like that in the coaching community. So the first thing they're going to do, especially say if you're Brian Daboll, the first thing you're going to do is call a bunch of Bill Belichick guys who had worked with Gerard. And, what do you think? What are you hearing about the situation there? And I don't think that's going to go well for Gerard. I don't think it's any secret that Bill and him don't have much of a relationship, and they didn't have much of a relationship Bill's final season here for various reasons. And so, I think those are, from what I've been told about Daboll, that, because I do think he reached a contract extension recently. I've been told it's more likely that Daboll takes a season off and hangs out in the Florida Keys for a year or two, then jumps back into being somebody's offensive coordinator. But, you never know with these guys. They've been doing this their whole lives. They're junkies. I'll be interested to see how long Josh McDaniels stays out, after being out for a year. How's he going to react to that? I would not put Josh McDaniels as a possibility to come back here, but things can change. He lives here. Maybe he wants to get back into coaching that much. I don't know. But one thing I did want to mention, Nick, as far as what the Patriots could do as far as improving their situation. And again, we could get into more. This is too many cooks in the kitchen, but who knows? Maybe a Ben McAdoo or TC and McCartney leaves after the season. What was really interesting, and I sort of made fun of it at the time, when Andy Reid got fired in Philadelphia and went to Kansas City, one of the things he did when he got there was he named Brad Childress, who had been the Minnesota Vikings head coach and was fired. He named him sort of spread offense coordinator. Basically, his whole job was, and he used some outside sourcing, like we heard Bert talk about the Nevada coach. Like they had people come in and teach them certain things.
Is that Chris Peterson? Is that who that was?
I think it was Chris Alt, I want to say.
Chris Alt, okay.
Yeah, that they went out of their way, because Andy Reid was very much an old school West Coast guy. So was Brad Childress. They went out of their way to say, we need to learn more tricks. We need to adapt our offense for sort of the modern game and what's going on in college. And I think the Patriots could very, very much use that. And that could be a solution where you're helping, the coaches and Alex Van Pelt and Drake Maye by doing something along those lines.
All right, before we get to a few more questions that I had in the headlines and then get to the Rams matchup, let's first get to Greg's prize picks for this week.
Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. As of right now, I don't have any picks because Prize Picks did not have Rams Patriots players up. I think they sort of wait for Thursday or after Thursday's game to do that. So make sure you check out my Twitter account. I will post my projections on there. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game.
All right, before getting to Rams Patriots, just a few questions. AVP spoke to the media today. Big AVP podcast here today before Rams and Patriots breakdown.
The ratings are going to go through the roof with this one.
Van Pelt talk, baby. That's what the people want. That's what they need. All right, so Van Pelt said on Maye's footwork today, Greg, I just wanted your quick thoughts on this. He said big growth and that Maye against Chicago had some plus plays when it comes to the footwork. We did not necessarily talk about, we talked about it last week about Maye not really showing a huge amount of growth with the fundamentals, but the Chicago game, did you see anything that stood out to you? Was he a little bit more controlled in the pocket outside of running into pressure? You did mention that he kind of created a lot of pressure on his own, but as far as being in the pocket and you know, the footwork and the technique of it all, anything stand out to you? Would you agree with AVP that it's been big growth at this point, or do you stand by what you said last week and not so much?
I mean, I wouldn't say big growth. And again, this is a guy who part of his job, actually a big part of his job is to develop the quarterback. And if he's not making growth, if he's saying like, I mean, is he going to go out there and say Drake Maye's really backsliding? Like he's indicting himself. So I don't really care what he said. I will say this week, I will say negatively, not much jumped out in terms of that. Like I didn't find myself like, you know, oh geez, that was not good. I do think that he threw better in the wind than Caleb Williams did. You know, we talked about it. And I broke it down on BSJ with my column and also posting like the entire first half worth of film, offensive film from when I was doing my grading. You know, the throw to Austin Hooper again is as good as you're going to see in the NFL.
Yeah.
His in cut to Kayshon Boutte before the field goal before first half, you know, great job, great ball placement, great read, all that stuff is on point. I did not have a whole lot of you know, sort of negative thoughts as far as his footwork. I did think that certainly his biggest issue in this game was he created more pressure for himself than he needed to. And there were a couple times he got a couple passes batted down. I think some of that had to do with how he brings the ball down really low and throwing from a low place. But I didn't have any huge critiques this week.
All right, let's talk about Kendrick Bourne. Van Pelt said that Bourne is a big part of us moving forward. He did mention, I think it was Kayshon Boutte and Pop Douglas and Polk before he mentioned Bourne, but said he's a big part of us moving forward. What do you think happens with Bourne this weekend? Does he play?
Yeah, I would say that him and KJ Osborne sort of flip-flop. Again, KJ Osborne ran a route where I didn't know what he was doing, and he actually got in Hunter Henry's way more than anything. And then he had a run block where it looked like he was running away from making a block. So the film is not good. Kendrick Bourne's film is not great. It's sort of pick your poison, but I think it was KJ's time last week. It's probably Kendrick Bourne's. I will say, if you think it's going to be a big run game, and the Patriots were, I think, almost totally balanced last week against the Bears.
Yep.
As far as blocking, KJ Osborne would be your choice over Kendrick Bourne, who's just, you know, thinner and smaller. And so that could have been part of it. All
right. Last one about AVP's comments. He said about Kayshon Boutte, He's our most consistent wide receiver. We haven't really dove in too much about Booty, but he's really starting to make an impact, Greg. When you look at his tape, when you look at him as a wide receiver right now, year 2, what do you think his ceiling is? And do you think X is where he's supposed to be? Or eventually, if the Patriots can find that big X boundary guy, they could do something else with Booty?
Yeah, no, I don't think he's an X. He's not explosive enough. I do think he's more like a power forward type receiver. You could make the case that he could be like a big slot. His ceiling, I just think that the Patriots probably need all of these guys to be slotted down like a peg. Probably 2 or 3 pegs. They probably need two top end receivers, whether that's free agency, trade, or probably coupled with the draft. But I mean, you're hoping Jalen Polk becomes a number 2. We'll see whether that happens. Again, I don't indict rookies on what they do. It's just that they have to get used to playing. Usually receivers are better in year 2. So I think that, I just think that they need a number 1. They probably need a number 2, or at least assure themselves of a number 2. And then, so Pop would be like a 3. That's probably where he ideally is. And then it's between Polk and Booty as far as 4. And so that's sort of where I see him. But I do agree with that. I do think he certainly had some route running issues, but I think as far as the group as a whole, he's probably been the most consistent guy. He's a good route runner. He catches the ball with his hands. He's physical. He's done a nice job.
All right, let's get into the Rams-Patriots finally. Rams offense versus Patriots defense. What should we expect and be looking for on Sunday?
So as far as the Rams offense, they still have a good scheme. And I will say it's not, McVay's good, but I would say guys like Shanahan and Mike McDaniel, they're more creative as far as what they do in this style of offense. The biggest thing for me, Nick, that jumps out is the Rams offense is really slow.
Yeah.
In fact, Stafford factors into a little bit of that because, he is an older quarterback. He's been through it. But it takes these guys, Cooper Kupp is he's coming back from injury. I don't think he's quite the same player. He's still got quicks. He's more of like your traditional sort of slot guy, a lot of speed outs and stuff like that. And, option routes. Puka Nacua is, he's slow. That's why he was drafted where he was, but he's an elite route runner, and he's big and physical and has really good hands. But he runs really good routes. That's how he gets open. But this offense to me is really slow. And I think it's a really good matchup for this Patriots defense, especially because I do think in the secondary, I think they fly around. I think that the Patriots can play a lot of man coverage. And as we said, reacting to the Bears game, the 3 highest man percentage games that the Patriots have had are all 3 of their wins. I don't think that that's just a coincidence. That's something that I've been asking for them to do. I think, and we ever heard Godchow say, what was the difference? I think coming out of the Jets game, he's like, we just stopped doing a bunch of cute shit and we just played football. I think they got too enamored with, we need to show this pre-snap and we're going to do this post-snap. And they're just not good enough and they're not assignment sure enough to really do that yet. They're not the Vikings and they're not the Chiefs. So, don't get over your skis in terms of that stuff. You're really, the best part of your defense is the ability to play man coverage between Christian Gonzalez, Marcus Jones, Jonathan Jones, and whoever is the 4th cornerback. I assume we'll see more Alex Austin this week instead of Marco Wilson, who has, he's really struggled. He was sort of the weak point against the Bears. But there was one stat that I wanted to point out. I'm trying to find it. So, yeah, the Rams offense is really slow. They are horrible on 3rd down. They're at 26% in the last 4 weeks, and I'm just looking at the last 4 weeks. They are one of the worst teams as far as third down conversions. The biggest thing is, in Stafford, his worst rating, his worst stats come against cover one, which is man coverage, which is now the predominant coverage of the Patriots. He has struggled against man coverage and cover one. His passer rating is only 56.7. But the big thing is, if you're going to do that, you have to pressure the quarterback. And the Rams' offensive line is not that good, but can you do it? If you don't get enough pressure on Matthew Stafford, he is going to carve you up. Those guys are going to stay active. He's going to know where they are. He's going to carve you up. The thing that the Dolphins did last week on Monday night was they got a ton of pressure on Matthew Stafford. So they played man and got pressure. Can the Patriots do that? I have my questions about whether they can do that.
Yeah, the Rams this year, they're 25th in the NFL on third down. Their run game hasn't been particularly great. If you look at their run game, I think it's 18th in DVOA, so pretty much middle of the pack. They get almost no rushing yards over expectation. I mean, they're 31st in the league, so they get pretty much the rushing yards that they're supposed to get, if not a little less than they should be getting. And we know Sean McVay loves basing his offense off the run. So that's been a struggle, which would obviously lead to some third down issues, which is what it shows. And as you mentioned, man coverage against Stafford, he has struggled. My guy, Evan Lazar, had the stat in his story this week that Stafford is 31 out of 34 qualified quarterbacks in expected points added against man coverage. So he is literally one of the worst quarterbacks in football against man coverage. And last week against Miami, he was 3 for 9, 35 yards and a pick against cover one. So I do think there are some things. One of the major points of this is that the Patriots, not only about the pass rush, which you are right, Greg. I mean, if you look at ESPN, they get them 20th in pass block win rate. Teams have not blitzed the Rams a lot. They've faced the 10th lowest blitz rate in the league. The Patriots have the 5th highest blitz rate in the league. So the Patriots love the blitz. The Rams haven't really had to face a lot of blitz. How much will that play a role? But also just, when you're going against a McVay offense in similar ways as like Shanahan, deception, right? They're going to have lots of motion. They're going to run a bunch of like condensed formations and bunch formations. And the Patriots just have to make sure that they are disciplined as well. So man coverage, disciplined, get some pass rush. And if the Rams can't run the football, I think their offense is going to have some difficulties against this Patriots defense. All right, before we get to the Patriots offense against the Rams defense, Greg wants to tell you about how you can go to this football game on Sunday with our friends from Game Time.
Yeah, if you want to be there, NFL, NBA, you need to appreciate football. You need to be there in person. And to do that, you got to go to Game Time. Game Time has Game Time picks, filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I love the all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. I hate those surprise fees. Seat views, get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
Just a quick update from practice. See the posts from a lot of the writers down there at practice right now. Barmore is officially back. He's at practice. He's taking part in some reps. And also of note, Dietrich Wise, not at practice with his foot issue. So looks like Wise is probably going to miss this weekend's game if we had to guess. Other than that, not too bad. I mean, Tyquan Thornton and Caleb Jones, 2 non-factors, are absent. So Kyle Duggar's back at practice, as we found out yesterday. Sione Taki is also back at practice today, which is good. Marcellus Dial, Isaiah Bolden, all those guys are back on the field. So Wise is really the only impact player that plays a good amount of snaps that's not out there today. So from an injury standpoint, looking pretty good for the Patriots on Sunday if they can get through the next couple days okay. All right, Patriots offense, Rams defense. Greg, this Rams defensive line just continues to get better and better as the year goes on.
Yeah, this is going to be where the game's won and lost. In my opinion, I think the Rams will do enough. I will say to further what you said. In the last 4 games for the Rams, in which they're 3-1, that should be pointed out. They obviously had a tough game on Monday. The Patriots also had that advantage of the Rams played on Monday, and they're coming east, so it's really a 10 a.m. game for them. So that'll factor into it. The Rams rushing EPA in the last 4 games is 32nd in the league. Okay, but let's talk about their defense. Here's some stats for you as far as EPA. And I know a lot was made of me on Felger and Maz. Like all of a sudden Felger's like, what's the definition of EPA? Sorry, I didn't have it on hand. And really, it doesn't matter. It's like Popeye's chicken tastes good. I don't know what the hell's in it, but I know it freaking tastes good. And like whether it's EPA, it's the same thing as WAR in baseball. I couldn't tell you what the hell WAR is, but it's a measurement of they apply it across the league. It's just like EPA, DVOA, PFF grades. Like, it's basically like an efficiency sort of thing, but as long as it's being used, applied the same way across the league, it gives you at least a barometer on how people compare both as a team and individually across people around the league. The Rams EPA on defense in the last 4 weeks is 2nd in the league. Their pass defense is 5th. Their rush defense is 2nd. They take the ball away. They've had 9 takeaways, I think, in just the last 4 games. They've had 9 takeaways. They've had 5 giveaways. The Patriots have had 1 takeaway and 4 giveaways. Defensive pressure in the last 4 weeks, LA is 4th in the league at 41%. Blitz rate, 20th. The Rams only play, they are 27th in man coverage. They play 80% zone, so that'll affect how Drake Maye can run. Also, let's see. Defense is 2nd in interception rate percentage, allowing 30% third downs. They're 5th in red zone at 38.5, 3rd in goal to go. They are 3rd in sacks over the last 4 games. They're getting basically almost 4 sacks per game. Let's see what else. Pressure rate is 40.9%, 20th in blitz. Yeah, this Rams defense is good. The 2 rookies up front, Jared Verse, who's probably going to be the defensive rookie of the year. Fisk, who's inside. They're excellent. They're not, I wouldn't say they're overly exotic, but they're, they fly around. And Jared Verse is something else, man. That guy, he's got really good get off. He's got power. He's got speed. He's got it all.
Motor.
Yeah, he runs around. He'll make a bunch of backside plays. Yeah, this is going to be a really tough matchup for the Patriots. I'm excited to see, Drake Maye against this. I think the Bears were a step up for him in terms of competition. And, he did reasonably well. This is another step up in competition for Drake Maye. But, yeah, I think this is going to be their toughest matchup to me so far. I mean, you could have said the Jets, but the Jets without Robert Saleh, they've been horrible on defense. They're just not playing the same. This is a real tough test for Drake Maye in the offense.
Early down offense, we saw how much of a role it played against Chicago. Can they get their run game going? Can the Patriots get any run game going on 1st and 2nd down? The rushing defense, look, I mean, it's really good. 7th in run stop win rate this year. 8th in yards per carry. They just faced Devon Achane, who is, a speedster in that Miami, speed lineup. Achane ran for 37 yards on 12 carries, and 15 of those 37 yards came on one of those 12 carries. So they absolutely humiliated
one of those
game.
In one of those specialty plays, one of those specialty plays, whether it's, the speed motion and stuff like that the Patriots just don't have in their bag.
No. So you mentioned, Fisk, Verse, they're ridiculous. Kobe Turner, Byron Young, also no joke on that defensive line. Very difficult test for the Patriots offense. And, will AVP help Vidarian Lowe against Verse? I hope the hell so. How does Michael Wenu do against Fisk? How does the rest of that interior offensive line do against Fisk? That's going to be a big question. They do some things like the creeper motions. I mean, the creeper pressures, which we've talked about in the past. And I do think, Greg, the one thing I would say is Van Pelt has to take advantage of the aggressiveness of this defense. And they are a very young defense. They're very aggressive. They get downfield a lot. And that could open up some opportunities. But the timing has to be there, whether you're talking about screen game or draw game, utilizing the tight ends and stuff like that with, leaking out late. Some of those things could help against this kind of a defense. But Van Pelt has to be very good on Sunday, and his timing has to be nearly immaculate to make the Rams pay for that aggression, because if he doesn't, it's going to be a tough day. All right, before we get to the prediction, check out BSJ, $50 for the year. Bedard, Giardi, you know the deal. They do great work at the Patriots. Also, download the Prize Picks app. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly when you play $5, and then take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download that Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. All right, this week's pick. Let's see. I'm 5-5 against the spread, 4-6 straight up. Greg is 3-5-2 against the spread. He is 5-5 straight up. The Rams are giving 4.5. The over-under is 43.5. Greg, what is your prediction?
Well, first of all, I think my best bet, because I don't know what I'm going to get week to week with the Patriots or their opponent. And so, yeah, I'm struggling a little bit on my picks. But I think the thing that I feel best about is the under in this game. I don't think the Rams are all that good offensively, and I think the Patriots against that Rams defense, it's going to be a struggle. I could see this game being played in the teens, certainly in the low 20s. I could see this being like a 2017 game. Like I said, the Patriots have a couple things going for them. The Rams played on Monday night. They got to come cross country. They're playing at 10 a.m. It's always tough for West Coast teams to come east, especially for 1 p.m. Starts. And I think we sort of talked about this before the season when I talked about games that the Patriots could possibly win. I think I probably picked this game for them. I had questions also about, the Chargers game, and we had the Seahawks coming, west to east. One thing I did want to mention, Nick, as far as our talk about the Rams defense, to me, like Nick, I don't know how you feel about this, but I do not want to come here on Tuesday, and I don't want to watch the film here on Monday, and Jared Verse to wreck the game like Jeffrey Simmons did against the Titans.
Or Nick Bosa.
Or Nick Bosa. We all know. We're not football geniuses, but even we know, you have to have a plan for Jared Verse. Yep. You have to know where he's going to line up. You have to know how you're going to block it or how you're not going to block it. You need to do that on every single snap. If we come in here, if we see on Sunday that Jared Verse has, 3 sacks and 10 quarterback pressures or what have you, that's an epic fail by Alex Van Pelt as far as coordinating this offense. And so I want to see a step forward with that. If we don't, not only is Drake Maye is in trouble, but Alex Van Pelt is in trouble too. So I do think that the Patriots are going to do well against the Rams offense. I don't have as much confidence about Alex Van Pelt against this defense. And I assume Sean McVay is a good game planner. He's the type of head coach who'll be like, look, we can't let Drake Maye's legs beat us. What's our plan? What are we going to do? I don't think they're going to let him run around. I do think this is going to be a really close game. I think it's going to be a field goal game. And I think because of Stafford, I don't think the Patriots are going to get enough pressure on Stafford to really affect him and make his life miserable in this game. So I'm going to go Rams 20, Patriots 17.
All right. So the Rams are an interesting team because they've had some bad losses. They lost to Arizona by 31. They lost at Chicago, the team we just watched this past weekend. They lost to that team. It was not a good loss on Monday against Miami. Miami was pretty much dead in the water, and they somehow lost a home game against Miami. They're also, if you look at it, they're 1-3 on the road. So it's kind of interesting. Something has to give this weekend because the Rams are 1-3 on the road. The Patriots are 1-3 at Gillette. So who's going to actually show up? Can the Patriots win another game at home? Can the Rams win another game on the road? Big question there. I feel, though, very similarly, not surprising. I will say that we've been pretty much dead on when it comes to us describing the game and explaining what it's going to, what's going to happen and play out. We've lost a lot of these against the spread bets by a couple points here and there, but the general tenor of the game, we're usually right. And I agree a lot with what you said. Like, I don't think that the Rams are going to score much more than 20 unless you have turnovers, which does concern me because Drake Maye has been very turnover worthy in his first 5 starts. And as you mentioned, the Rams, they create takeaways an awful lot. That concerns me. The D line of the Rams against the Patriots offensive line concerns me. But I do think the Patriots can limit the wide receivers for LA and keep them kind of somewhat close. So I've been sitting on like 20-13 or 20-16. And it's such a deal breaker because if you go with 20-16, you take the points with the Patriots. If you go 20-13, you take the Rams given the 4.5. So shoot, I'm going to go 20-16. Screw it. I'm going to go 20-16. Rams win. Patriots barely cover. But I agree with you. I also like the under. I don't think they'll go over 43.5 because of what we've talked about. So there you go. We'll see if we're right or wrong on Tuesday of next week. Hopefully it's a competitive and fun game to watch. Until then, everybody be well.